and hi everybody. I am Lynn Chamberlain and I am the founder of the Brand Dame, and I am really delighted to be with you today to talk about one of my very favorite all-time subjects, which is why your logo is not your brand. And just a quick aside here, when I work with nonprofits and service organizations in particular in creating their brands, this is one of the first hurdles that we overcome together because it's a challenge for everybody. And so hopefully in this jam-packed, let's get it all out there next 20 minutes, what I have to say is going to be helpful to you as you think about your brand identity and all of its moving pieces, regardless of the size of your organization and regardless of where you are in the branding, in your branding journey. We're all at different places, and all of this, no matter how basic, I think is relevant to all of us. So why don't we just jump right in, and here we go. So you can't talk about logos without talking about branding, because branding is the trunk of the tree. And the problem with the word branding is that everybody uses it and it means a million different things. And to my way of thinking, branding the word has sort of lost its luster and its original meaning. So here's how I think about branding. I think about branding in these four ways. It's your identity. It's how you present your nonprofit to the world through a whole kind of cool ecosystem of messaging and visuals and values and all of the things that sort of go into that pot. That's your identity. It's also a promise, and I think this is really important, and it's something that people can miss, that by crafting this identity, you are crafting a promise. Your brand communicates what you stand for, and it sets the expectations for what they can expect from you, from what your audience can expect from you. So you're promising them, this is who I am, and this is what I'm going to do for you. And that builds the next sort of pillar here, which is the relationship. You're creating an emotional connection between your organization and your supporters. And all of this is dependent upon consistency. Brands are nothing if they're not consistent. Brands are about delivering a clear, consistent message across every interaction you have with any of your constituencies, your communities, whatever it happens to be. So in a nutshell, brands build trust. If they don't build trust, then they're not worth the paper or the digital paper that they're written on. A strong brand tells your audience who you are and what you stand for. It's you controlling the conversation rather than people having to kind of figure out what your brand is and what your organization does. You're setting it forth in a bold way and saying, this is who we are, this is what we promise you, this is what we will give you if we gain your trust. And trust is huge, because trust leads to long-term support, donations, engagement, etc. And your brand is your promise. It's not just a visual element, which is what leads us into our talk about logos. These are the common misconceptions that I encounter all the time about logos. That people think that, and I completely get this, because logos are the most public piece often of our brand, of our identity, of our visual system. But it's not the whole enchilada. The logo is just one piece of your brand identity, given it's probably one of the most visible and important, but it's not, you don't throw everything but the kitchen sink into your logo thinking that it's going to explain the brand. No, I will talk later about how your logo is your front door to your house. It's the gateway to your brand, but it is not the entire brand. The other misconception is that you're making this logo thing work way too hard. You're wanting it to show what you do. Think of your logo as your brand's personality. It's not the entire person. It is the personality. It's the kind of first impression that you get. And let's say you meet this brand as a person. Do you want to know more about them? The logo is that kind of introductory persona to the underlying foundational brand. And I'm going to say this a lot, that people think that the more stuff they throw into this stew, this logo stew, the better, but it's not the case. I'll show you some examples in a minute. Simpler logos are much more memorable and much more versatile. So, what do logos do? What's the meaning of their lives? A logo is a visual representation. It's not the whole story. It's the visual representation. Logos, as I just said, reflect values and mission, but they don't tell it all. They don't tell the whole story. And here's, if you're taking notes, here's the big reveal. Logos are a starting point, but it's the brand experience itself that makes the impact. Logos as a starting point should just kind of pique your interest. Wow, I want to know more about that. I want to know, what, really? Oh, that is really interesting. Tell me more, so that you are beginning your customer or your supporter's brand journey to your, through your brand, in your front door, into the house where you want them to stay and sit down and have a cup of coffee and a conversation with you. That is the responsibility that we imbue logos with. And that strong logo has to be adaptable across a whole bunch of different platforms and media. In other words, this is not a once and done. We'll talk a little bit about that again at the end. But your logo, visually and as it's constructed, needs to be something you can morph over your social media, over your event signage, over your thank you notes to donors. It has to be incredibly pliable. It's your Play-Doh that is going to keep working for you over and over and over again. Okay, so a logo without a brand strategy, it's nothing more than a symbol. And that's probably one of my main messages to you this morning. I think that's the mistake that a lot of people make. They come up with a really sort of pretty looking logo, but there's no scaffolding. So it vaporizes as soon as it sort of hits the screen. So let's talk about a couple logos that work. I could go on and on about this. I mean, we could spend the entire 20 minutes and then another 20 minutes talking about logos that work. So I wanted to pick two iconic logos that sort of crystallize my thinking about logos. On the left, World Wildlife Federation, Panda Bear. This logo to me is brilliant because it is simple, it's iconic, it is instantly recognizable in two ways. One, it conveys the mission of the World Wildlife Federation of protecting endangered animals. Immediately you know that that's what the organization does. And the panda is not only a representation of an endangered species, but who doesn't love a panda? So it's an emotional connection. You can't look at that panda without kind of doing a, oh. And it's a logo that does all the work that you want a logo to do, which is tell me more. I recognize this. This means something to me. I want to take it the next step. We can also look at this other logo, which is Charity Water, which I think is brilliant for another reason. Charity Water is a organization that provides clean drinking water throughout the world. This is, as I've said here, a bold, minimalist design of a simple jerry can. We all know what a jerry can is. Amazingly, iconic and recognizable, that instantly, and this is the brilliance here, communicates the mission of the organization to provide clean drinking water. And so these are examples of, heavy duty, carry their weight, do their job logos that I think we can all really learn from. So let's talk about some logos that don't work. And again, I've got, there are lots of these, and I'm sure you have ideas of your own about logos you come across where you kind of go, huh? So I wish I liked the Make-A-Wish logo more than I do. I really do. But it fails me on two different levels. First of all, it doesn't capture the emotional weight of this organization in granting, these wishes to ill children. It looks much more like, it's very Disney-esque. It's like, it's like the happiness of Disney. It's too corporate, and it does not tell me anything about what the organization stands for, what its values are. And so I want this logo to do more and to have more gravitas without being heavy. I need the gravitas here that I don't see. And sorry, Goodwill, the smiley face really doesn't do it for me. I think it misses the seriousness of this organization's social impact, its social service, its emphasis on employment and social impact. It's more like a retail brand to me. And I think that it is something that could do a lot more heavy lifting than it does, and to give the brand itself, which we are all familiar with and which is very iconic, but even iconic brands need definition, constant definition, to tell us what it is that they do and what it is that they stand for. And I think Goodwill misses the mark on that level. So as I said before, the logo is the gateway to your brand. And here's a little effective ditty that I thought would be useful to you to remember. Effective logos create meaningful and consistent interactions that lead to what? To building a connection between your nonprofit and its supporters. Again, it's the front door to the house. That's the logo. And you want people to come into the house, sit down in the living room, have a conversation with you, and come back again. And that's the job that we give to logos. So all of this is like, okay, great. Well, so now what do I do? And as I said in the beginning, I'm sure that each one of you is at a different point in your logo evolution, in thinking about your brand's values and its identity. Everybody's in a process of evolution, because brands are not stagnant. Brands never stand still. And if they do, then you've really got a problem. But I think we're all in the process of evaluating what we're doing. So here are some things that I think are important to sort of focus in on, clear your head, reset the agenda, and think about, how do you define your core message? Or have you defined your core message and your values? Have you done it before you've started to design your logo? Or can you look at an existing logo and say, is this reflective of our core, our central message, of our values, of what we stand for? Do we need a refresh or a redesign in order to represent that better? Secondly, really important, consider your audience. Who are you talking to? And this is another thing that I think bears, even if you think you've got this nailed down, this is something that I advise nonprofits to think about every 3 months. Who is the audience? The audience is not everyone. And this is another challenge for particularly small and sometimes medium-sized nonprofits, which is, you think that if you cover a broad swath of people, that you're going to have more success because you're going to capture a bigger audience. In fact, the reverse is true. I'm a great advocate of narrow your lane, know exactly who you're talking to. Don't be afraid of leaving second and third and fourth tier audiences on the table. You are much better off, and you will be much more successful if you preach to the choir. And it's scary because you think, well, what about this group? What about that group? Your brand will sing if you are doing, as I said, if you are preaching to the choir, because those are the people that you want to be connecting with. Keep it simple. Ask yourself, how simple is our logo? Is it too complicated? Is it trying to do too many things at once? And if the answer is yeah, kind of, then you've got to focus on clarity. How can you make it as clear as possible? And as you're thinking about ticking off these boxes, I would encourage you to think about the importance of consistency. That you've got to use the same tone, the same colors, the same visuals, and the same messaging everywhere. If you don't, your brand will be muddy, it will be diluted, and no two people will recognize your brand and your logo in the same way. You have to really discipline yourself to stick to the program, stick to the brand assets, and stick to the logo everywhere that you are facing the public in one way or another. Again, use your brand story to connect emotionally. Don't forget that emotional connection, right? Because, you know, brands at the end of the day are emotional responses. They are not intellectual. You have to connect with people, particularly in the nonprofit world. It's about an emotional connection that then is built up with an ecosystem of values and mission and purpose. You've got to engage through multiple touch points. You know, that's what I meant about having your brand, having your logo work in different capacities. You've got to make sure it works on social media, newsletters, events, so that your brand, again, is that Play-Doh, which I like to think of it as, that you can morph and sculpt into anything that you need at any particular point. And use your logo everywhere, right? Everywhere, so that people are tripping over it. You want that to build recognition and trust. As you tell your stories, your success stories, or your donor thank yous, or write your case statements, make your logo right there, front and center. Make it a focal point of any of the external campaigns and community events that you do. Start small, nail down your mission. Don't overcomplicate it. Use free tools like Canva, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with. You don't have to hire a designer. You can. And you can also do some really respectable logo work yourself, especially if you follow the things that we've talked about today. Keep it simple and scalable. Don't make it a rainbow. Don't make it 90,000 colors. Just do 2 or 3 colors that you really like for a cohesive, recognizable look. And make sure you test it in black and white so that you can make it as versatile as you can without color. Okay, listen, gang, your logo is just one part of your overall brand. Focus on building trust, because people will trust you if you are honest with them, if you're clear, if you're simple, if you're direct, and tell your story consistently. And just remember that your brand is your most valuable asset. So treat it with care. You know, pay attention to the care and feeding of your brand. Make sure that your logo and your brand are absolutely in lockstep with each other. And I promise you that that this will create greater recognition and greater engagement as you go along. And I wish you all the best in your branding journey. Here's who I am. I welcome you to connect with me on email with any questions that you have. I promise you that I will answer. I love questions. I love the answers that I can generate for you. And if that helps you, I am delighted. I urge you to subscribe to my Substack newsletter, which is the Brand Dame, because you're going to find a lot of great tips. I'm very committed to tactical things that people can do right now. And of course, you can always talk to me and schedule time with me for a chat about your brand. So I thank you. I wish you good luck. And I appreciate your being here today.